It's likely that a wedding that you either attended or were part of at some point, the bride and groom used the phrase forsaking all others in their vows. Maybe something like this: do you promise to love, cherish, and honor your wife, forsaking all others? Now, sadly, a lot of marriages are struggling today because we've decided to forsake our spouse and not protect the marriage from outside forces influencing it. So in today's video, I want to talk about how the outside affects the inside and what to do about it. Welcome to Relation Shots. My name's Eric Wooten. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you've not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming videos. Now, at this point, I don't have to convince you that relationships are difficult. Listen, we have enough stuff going on in our relationship between personality differences and communication styles and baggage we bring in that we got enough going on inside the relationship that we don't need stuff outside the relationship coming in and negatively influencing us. But if we're not careful, that's exactly what can happen to every relationship. And if you're not tracking with me yet, then let me do this. Let me ask for a show of hands if any of these things have ever caused conflict in your relationship. Show of hands. In-laws? Kids? Well, let me just keep my hands up. Work? Cell phone use? TV watching? Video game playing? Addictions? Friends? Affairs? Hobbies? Church? Do I need to keep going? Yeah, we've all noticed that there are things outside of our relationship between you and your spouse that can cause a negative influence in the relationship. So what spouses need to be able to do is have the discipline or practice of forsaking outside things on behalf of protecting the relationship. Remember this, forsaking is protection. And too many of us are not forsaking outside things, but instead we're forsaking the relationship and the intimacy and the connection, and we're not guarding that very well, and we're finding ourselves disconnected inside the relationship. Listen, you don't need to play golf for 5 hours with your buddies on Saturday and be in the C-League softball team on Wednesdays and do the co-ed kickball team on Thursdays. You might need to forsake some things. And listen, Johnny does not need to be in 3 sports at the same time. He's most likely not going pro. Look at the gene pool that you and your spouse are passing on to Johnny. That's a pretty good indicator that even though he has heart and he likes to hustle, he's not going pro. Remember, forsaking is protecting. One of the greatest areas where this can happen are outside relationships. Now, psychologists use a term called triangulation. Don't go look this up, because if you do, you'll see all kinds of articles on how narcissists use triangulation to manipulate. And I'm just saying, on a basic sense, in every marriage, anytime one spouse brings a third party into the relationship in an unhealthy way, triangulation is occurring. And what is happening is they're using somebody else in an area of their life when they should be connecting with their spouse. Let me give you some examples. Maybe it's a husband who's more invested in his parents than he is in his wife. Maybe it's a wife who confides in her friend about the unhappiness in her marriage, but never says anything to her husband about it so that he can work on it. Maybe it's a parent that confides in their child and is closer to their child than they are to their spouse. Maybe it's a spouse that confides in their coworker about how their spouse doesn't understand them. Whatever the scenario is, the reality is that an area of their heart or an area of the relationship that should be just between the two spouses is now being outsourced to a third party, and it causes destruction and disconnection in the relationship. So spouses that want a healthy marriage have got to get to a place where they're willing to forsake some outside things on behalf of protecting the marriage. Now, I'm not saying that it's healthy for an individual in marriage to not have any relationships outside of marriage. If you've watched any of my other YouTube videos, you know that I believe community is the #1 key to success in marriage. But you have to be willing at times to forsake certain relationships in order to protect the intimacy and connection in the relationship. So think about your marriage real quick. Are there any activities or relationships outside of your marriage that are causing disconnection in the relationship? If you were to remove some of these things, would it allow you to take that piece of your heart that you've been outsourcing and give it back to your spouse, creating greater intimacy and connection in the relationship? And if there is, my challenge to you this week is to first have a conversation with yourself about it, and then have a conversation with your spouse about how we can protect our marriage by forsaking some outside things. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below, and any things you do practically to help forsake others and protect the marriage so that we can all learn from one another. If you think this video would be helpful to somebody else, consider sharing it with a friend, and I look forward to seeing you right here next time on Relation Shots.